Hi, fifth grade. I hope you guys are all doing okay. I know that this is a very new type of situation for all of us, but I hope that you are keeping yourselves busy, being helpful to your moms and dads and grandmoms, and keeping yourselves busy. I know your first reaction right now might be like, oh, Miss Carol, I really don't want to do school. And that's understandable. It's okay to feel that way. But I want you to remember that we do need to learn over this time when we're out of school. We need to keep our brains busy and working so they don't turn into mush and melt out of our ears. We need to make sure we're hitting all of our benchmarks so that you guys are on reading level by the time we go to sixth grade. So we're going to keep it fun, we're going to keep it simple, and I'm going to give you options. You could either watch me right now reading the first 15 pages of our new book to you, or you can turn on some chill music and read it at home to yourself. It's just up to you and up to what you prefer. So in this video, I'm going to read you pages 1 to 15 of As Brave as You. This is a book Miss Padilla gave me and told me that she really thought you guys would like. So I'm excited to read it with you. I'm going to post some questions for you to answer on the Google Classroom after. You can answer them on paper, you can type them and share them with me. However you answer them is fine, just make sure you do it because we need to be reading and we need to be writing. And then after we've done our reading for today, there's also going to be a vocab video where I'm going to teach you your 12 new vocab words because we're on Unit 10, and yes, I am going to find a way to give you a quiz on your new vocabulary. Go ahead and open up our book. I'm just doing some quick notices and wonders. I'm noticing that as we open it up, there's these pages that look a little bit different than a regular story page, and they're numbered. It's very interesting to see. I am going to start on the page where it says chapter 1. I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to pause like I do in real life and ask you to think about things and ask you to make meaning of different stuff. Maybe I'll even ask some questions and pretend call on you. Andrew? Lakira? Does anyone know the answer? Make sure you annotate as we read. This book is yours to keep. And you can pause me whenever you want, but don't forget to press play again and to keep reading. Chapter 1. Number 460. Here we go. Poop. Poop is stupid. Stupid poop. Stupid. Poopid. Poopity. Is poopity a word? Jeannie stood a few feet away from Samantha's shabby old doghouse, scribbling a mess of words on his notebook. His older brother, Ernie, was luring the mutt into a cleaner spot in the yard with a big pot of leftover chicken, bacon, grits, greens, and whatever else was for doggy breakfast. Okay, that should keep her busy for a few minutes, Ernie said, successful. He walked over to the side of Grandma and Grandpa's house, grabbed a rusty shovel, and then came back to Jeannie and started scooping up crusty piles of dog poop. Don't tell Mr. Todd about this. He'll never let us get a dog. What I want to know is what you about to do with that mess, Jeannie asked, pinching and pulling his shorts out of his butt. Ma must have not noticed how much he had grown since last year, before she packed all of his summer clothes. If you put that notebook down, you'll see, Ernie said, holding the shovel out and walking towards the back of the house, where all the trees were. When he got close enough to the wood line, he looked over his shoulder. Jeannie shoved the small notebook into his back pocket. You watchin'? Ernie called out, making sure all eyes were on him. Jeannie hustled over. Yeah. Ernie flashed a sly grin, one that worked perfectly with his dark shades. Then, without giving any kind of warning, he cocked the shovel back and flung it forward. The poop flew in the air and out into the woods, slapping against a tree and then exploding. Oh, yeah, Ernie cheered, holding his shovel up as if he had just scored a touchdown. Jeannie gaped, his mouth falling open as Ernie came back to scoop up more dog crud. You just gonna stand there, or are you gonna get in on this? Ernie asked, chin pointing to the other shovel leaning against the side of the house. No way was Jeannie gonna miss out on slinging poop. On poopidity? No way. How often does anybody get to catapult doo-doo into a forest? Never. Jeannie ran and grabbed the other shovel. Get this one, Ernie said, stabbing at a gross mound, still stinky. Guys, this whole book is about poop so far. Jeannie grimaced, and he slid the shovel under the poop, grimaced again and at the scratched sound of metal on dirt, and then lifted it and followed Ernie to the tree line. Go for it, Ernie said, nodding. Jeannie put one foot forward, holding the shovel as if it were a baseball bat, and he was about to attempt the worst bunt in history. He whipped the shovel forward, but not nearly hard enough. The poop plopped down only about a foot away. It was a pretty sad throw. I lost my place. It was way too close to being a situation where poop was splattered all over Jeannie's Converses. Yeah, they were already covered in dust, but dust is one thing. Even mud he could handle. But dog poop? There's no coming back from that. You gotta fling it, Jeannie. Fling it, Ernie demonstrated with a few ghost flings. You see that tree over there? Jeannie looked out at all the trees in front of them and wondered which one Ernie was talking about. It was pretty much a forest. Trees were everywhere. And Ernie wasn't really pointing at anyone in particular. He just said, that tree over there, as if one of the trees had been marked with a sign that said, this tree, dummy. But Ernie was always on him about asking too many questions. So Jeannie just nodded. I'm wondering how Jeannie and Ernie are connected. Are they brothers? Are they twins? I don't know. And where are their parents? Watch and learn, young grasshopper. Ernie held the shovel low, letting it hang behind him before hurling its contents into the woods. It splat against a tree. Perfect shot. It must have been the one that Ernie was aiming for, because he threw his hands up in celebration. Bang, bang, got it, he howled. Now, try again. Jeannie picked up another clump, questions flying all over the place like those flies on the poopidity. Why was there so much of it in the first place? Did nobody else care that there was a mess all over the yard? When was the last time that the yard had been poop scooped? Jeannie tried to mimic Ernie's every move. He held the shovel low and let it drop back behind him a little so that he could get some good momentum. We're talking technique here, sophisticated stuff. Aim for that old house back there, Ernie said, pointing into the woods. Old house back in the woods? I feel like our story's starting now. Jeannie focused and counted off. 1, 2, and on 3, he swung his whole body, a kind of broke-down golf swing, the mess whipping from the shovel head. Jeannie definitely got some air on this time, but he hadn't quite figured out how to aim it. Ernie left that part out. The poop zipped off behind him, slamming into a window at the back of the house. The wrong house. His grandparents' house. Jeannie! Ernie shouted, his eyes bugging. And right after that came Grandma. Jeannie! She called out. Ernie! What in Sam Hill are y'all doing? So far we know these two boys are staying with their grandma, and they just made a pretty big mistake. They got some dog poop on their own house. Let's keep reading. We're on the bottom of page 5, starting where it says Grandma. Grandma was the one who put Ernie and Jeannie on poop patrol in the first place, in case you were wondering. Neither one of them had ever had to shovel poop out of anybody's yard before. Because, first of all, in Brooklyn, most people don't have yards. And secondly, most Brooklyn folks just pick it up with plastic baggies whenever a dog does his due on the sidewalk. Not everybody, but the majority. But there were no sidewalks here in North Hill, Virginia. No brownstones with cement stoops where you could watch the buses, ice cream trucks, and taxis ride by. Nope. North Hill, Virginia was country. Like country. And Jeannie and Ernie were staying there in a small white house on the top of the hill. Grandma and Grandpa's house for a whole month. Like 30 whole days. So now we know some stuff. We know that these two boys, I think that they're boys, they're from Brooklyn. Brooklyn is part of New York City. We know that they're in the country. That's straight from the text, right? They're in Virginia staying with their grandma and grandpa. And it's for a month, 30 days. So we might be wondering right now, is it their summer vacation? Or what's going on with their mom and dad? Or any other details that hopefully we'll find out soon. Back to the text. The boys had arrived 2 nights earlier after a long, cramped ride in the back of their dad's old Honda. Cramped, at least for Jeannie, because Ernie, in a cheeseburger coma, had stretched out on the back seat as if it were his own personal couch, forcing Jeannie to be smushed up against the window for most of the trip. Jeannie had thought about playing Pete and Repeat by mimicking Ernie's nasty snores, but then he realized it wouldn't matter because Ernie wasn't awake to get annoyed by it anyway, and that was the whole point of that game. So, to take his mind off of the discomfort of being trapped under Ernie's leg, stewing in the thick silence between his folks, who had managed not to talk to each other for the last 4 hours, Jeannie flipped through the pages of his notebook, where he kept his best questions. Some had already been answered, and some were still mysteries. He landed on one that he had totally forgotten about. Guys, this is interesting. Look how this question is in the same font as the beginning of the book, and it's numbered, and it's just a different handwriting, so it almost looks like we're reading his journal. So we know he keeps track of questions now. Number 389. Do honey badgers eat honey? He then tried telling his parents about how he'd read on the internet that honey badgers actually do eat honey, and how many of them have been stung to death by bees because they wanted the honey from the hive so bad. The toughest, craziest animal ever. They're like weasels or something, but tougher. Know what I'm saying? Like, they're small, but they ain't scared to get busy, even on lions, Jeannie had rambled. The fact that his parents had neither asked him about honey badgers or even knew why he cared about them in the first place never stopped him from offering up random info at random times. That was sort of his thing. He was different from Ernie in that way. Jeannie was the kind of kid who kept a small, jacked-up notebook and pen in his pocket just so he could jot down interesting things whenever they came. The point was to keep a list, a numbered list, of all the things he needed to Google, because to Jeannie, the more questions you had, the more answers you could find. The more answers you found, the more you knew. And the more you knew, the less you made mistakes. Jeannie wasn't about mistakes. I'm learning so much about Jeannie. He seems like he's smart. He seems scared to make a mistake, and that makes me wonder if he made a big mistake before in his life that he doesn't want to repeat. He's nervous right now because his parents haven't talked to each other for 4 hours in the car ride. I would infer that maybe that means there's something going on between them. And he's definitely a chill brother to Ernie. I want you guys to notice how when the characters talk, it's a different kind of writing from when they're not speaking. And I want you to remember that from when we write, that we don't want to be writing like we talk. We want to be writing more formally and then using dialogue in the same way that we speak. We're on the top of page 8. Ernie, on the other hand, was the kind of kid who wore glasses 24/7, just to make sure everybody knew he was cool. And to him, the biggest mistake anyone could make was to not be that. Not to be. That and not being able to defend yourself. As a matter of fact, one of the only times Ernie didn't wear his shades was whenever he was doing karate, which he had been learning since he was 7. He was a brown belt, or, as he put it, a junior black belt. Jeannie loved to watch Ernie's matches and tournaments, but not quite as much as he loved to watch Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. Ernie, on the other hand, liked to watch girls. Jeannie liked to build model cars. Ernie liked to watch girls. Boy, if you don't go to sleep, I'm a honey your badger, Ma had droned from the front seat after Jeannie finished telling her about the video he'd seen of a honey badger actually taking on a lion. She was staring out the window and had been the entire time they were on the road. Jeannie sucked his teeth. That was when Dad readjusted the rearview mirror so that he could see Jeannie. Son, tell me something. He darted his exhausted-looking eyes from the rear-view mirror back to the road. How much you know about sloths? Miss Brake loves sloths. Sloths, Jeannie thought for a moment. Well, I know they're lazy, and they sleep all the time. He answered reluctantly, feeling the setup coming. Uh-huh, Dad said, flat. He glanced back in the mirror. See where I'm going with this? Jeannie sucked his teeth again. He knew exactly where Dad was going with it. Straight to, Jeannie, please be quiet and go to sleep town. But Jeannie didn't go straight to sleep, even though that's what his parents wanted. Instead, he stared out the window, like Ma, for about an hour, peering into the darkness, thinking about his girlfriend, Shelley, and his best friend, Aaron. He wondered if they were going to do all the things they always did in the summer, like play in the hydrant and buy rocket pops from the ice cream man without him. If they were going to miss his rants and his knowledge about random animals and insects. If Shelley would be able to spot a bedbug like he had taught her. He wondered if Aaron would try to impress Shelley with his backflips. Girls love dudes who can do backflips. And if she would fold to his flippin' charm and kiss him. Of course, if she did, it would be a loner kiss, Jeannie decided. A kiss to make up for the fact that he wasn't there. Nothing real. Jeannie sat there thinking about all these things, annoyed by his brother's snoring, listening to his parents not say a word, totally unsure about what was going to happen when they finally got to Virginia. The only thing he did know for sure was why they were going to the country in the first place, why he and Ernie had to spend a whole month away from Brooklyn for the first time ever. It had to do with Jamaica. Well, really, it all had to do with his parents not saying a word. They were having problems, which Jeannie knew was just parent talk for maybe, possibly, probably divorcing. They said that they needed some time to try to figure it all out. When his mother first told him about the problems, all Jeannie could think about was what his friend Marche Brown told him when her parents got divorced, and how she never saw her father again. When he asked his mother about whether he was going to have to choose which parent he wanted to live with, or if he and Ernie were going to have to split up too, all she said was, no matter what, me and your daddy love you both. Always. But that didn't really answer the question, which made it clear in Jeannie's mind that figuring it out, which, by the way, was supposed to happen in Jamaica, the first vacation his parents were taking without him and Ernie, really meant figuring out which parent got which kid, which, of course, meant this would probably be the last vacations his parents would be taking without them. And it got Jeannie thinking about who he'd want to live with, Ma or Dad, which led him to scribbling a list in the dark. Really, 2 lists. Number 439. Hold up, guys. This is, in the beginning, look, we have 437, 438, and now we're at 439. That might be important. Number 439, living with Dad. Pro, I would be safe from fires and thieves. Con, Dad works all the time and is never home. Con, so I probably wouldn't be safe from fires and thieves. Pro, I could watch scary movies. Con, Dad can't cook. Con, Dad stinks almost all of the time because of work. Living with Ma. Pro, she can cook real good. Pro, she never stinks. Con, she won't let me watch scary movies. Con, I don't know if she can protect me from fire and thieves. Con, which means I'd have to protect her. And I don't know karate. Eventually, after going back and forth in his mind about who he'd want to live with and messily jotting his thoughts in the notebook, the smooth, dark road hypnotized Jeannie, finally coaxing him to sleep. He hadn't even realized that he had drifted off until he was awakened by the sound of tree limbs scraping the side of the car. The Honda was bumping its way up a hill, and the limbs looked like long fingers on big sticks trying to get in and grab him. I know that Jamil just noticed this. I bet Jeremiah saw it. There was figurative language right here, similar to what we saw in Esperanza. So the limbs looked like long fingers scraping the side of the car, right? And it says that he feels like the big hands were trying to grab him. With that figurative language, does he feel very safe right now? I don't think so. I don't think he'd be talking about creepy long fingers grabbing him and holding him if he wasn't feeling a little bit nervous right now. Back to the text. It was still dark. Dad had his window cracked, letting some air in, and he had changed the music from slow jams to 90s hip-hop. "We hear," Jeannie muttered, wiping sleep from his eyes. He looked out the window, but couldn't see anything except branches. The car dipped and bucked every few minutes, and Dad kept slamming on the brakes to avoid potholes. "Jesus, this road is a mess," he fumed, turning the radio off so he could concentrate. Jeannie quickly patted the space beside him on the seat, searching for his pen. Once he found it, he flipped to the next page of his notebook. Number 440. "Does turning off the radio help you drive better?" he scrawled as Ma turned to him and flashed a sleepy smile. "Yes, honey, we're here." The skin on her face looked heavy, and Jeannie wondered if she had slept at all during the ride. Actually, the skin on her face had been looking heavy for a few months, since her and Dad had the big blow-up where she screamed, and told him that all his time went to work and the boys, but he could never seem to make time for her. Ernie and Jeannie had been outside having a snowball fight, and down the street Donnie, known for being a jerk, had covered a quarter in snow and zinged it at Jeannie. That's really unsafe. Never do that. Zapped him straight in the eye. Jeannie had run over to check on him when he saw the coin, most of the snow knocked off, and he commenced to karate-sizing down the street Donnie, all the way down the street. Meanwhile, Jeannie had run inside, his palm to his eye, and stepped right into Ma and Dad's crossfire over how she was feeling neglected. The swelling around Jeannie's eye eventually went away, but the heavy look on Ma's face never did. Anyway, the point was, Jeannie hoped that Ma had gotten some sleep on the way to Virginia, because the one thing he knew about Virginia he was right about. It was far, way too far to be awake the whole time. Ernie, on the other hand, had slept the entire trip, was still asleep, his mouth hanging wide open in that way that made the bottom half of his face look like it was melting. His sunglasses, lopsided, only covering one eye. Jeannie pushed Ernie's leg off him, but it snapped right back up to its place on Jeannie's lap, as if it were spring-loaded. "Ern, wake up," Jeannie said, slamming his finger into Ernie's thigh. "We here." Ernie didn't budge. "Ern!" Jeannie cried out, loud enough for Ma to hear. She turned around and slapped Ernie's leg. He snapped awake, confused, fixing his shades and wiping spit off of his chin and the bottom of his t-shirt. As the car approached the top of the hill, the sound of a dog barking came from nowhere. Jeannie pressed his face to the window. Was that Grandma and Grandpop's dog? What was it doing outside? Did they know it had gotten loose? Was Grandpop up this time of the night walking it? "Ernie, you remember Samantha?" Dad asked, cutting the engine for a minute after cresting the hill. Ernie craned his neck to see out the window, yawning. He had been to North Hill once before, a long time ago when he was 4. Jeannie hadn't come with him because at the time he was still a baby. That was the last time Dad had seen his father. It had been almost 10 years, and Jeannie had no idea what that was about. We just learned a little more, guys. So we know that Ernie is the older brother, which is probably why he protects Jeannie with his karate skills. And Ernie is probably maybe around 13 or 14, and Jeannie is around 10, because that was the last time they visited, and Jeannie wasn't born yet, or was a baby. Yeah, he was a baby. So this was Jeannie's first time to North Hill. As a matter of fact, this was really his first time going out of town at all. He had been to New Jersey, but that didn't really count. It took longer to get to his grandparents' house, his mom's parents, who lived in the Bronx, than it did to New Jersey. Jeannie had never met Dad's dad, his grandfather, but he had met his grandmother once. She had come to New York to visit when he was much younger, but he didn't remember too much about her, except for the fact that she looked like Dad. An old lady version of him, minus the mustache and the beard. And she smelled like soap. Jeannie remembered that. Of course I remember Samantha, Ernie grumbled, his voice groggy from the car sleep. That's where we're going to pause for today. We are going to pick up tomorrow on the bottom of page 15 and read a little bit more. The next thing I want you guys to do is I want you to start studying our Unit 10 vocab words. I'll make a video about that next, but you can use Quizlet to play and to learn these words by yourselves. I'll see you soon. Be good.